Hi, this is Jim. I'm recording this as a video because I've run into a lot of problems. I have a 93 Ford F250 with the 351 Windsor, and changing out the oil pan and oil pump. I found the problem that most people are finding, where you can jack the engine up, but there's still not enough room to get everything out. So you got to take the oil pump off first, and then you have to pull all the pieces out and kind of finagle your oil pan out to get it out. And then putting it back in, you got to pin the gasket up into the overhead or into the block and get your oil pan set back in there. And then you got to put your oil pump in with just one arm, or especially if it's just one person, one access point, and the oil pan is sitting down about 4 inches. So I am going to do this in stages. I've tried a couple times already and been unsuccessful. Then I came up with this idea. What I'm going to do is, this is the normal bolt that is that holds the oil pump in. I got a 3-inch bolt. It's a 3/8 by 16 thread, and I got a nut down here. So what I'm going to do is set this in to the oil pan just under where it mounts, because the problem you have is you got to get your screw to hold the oil pump on, and then try and get the rod to feed up into the distributor to so that when it's turning, it's pumping. And that's a kind of a hard target to hit when you're trying to land a screw or a bolt. So what I thought I'd do is put a longer bolt in here, guide it up using that as a guide rod per se. Plus it's held up there. I got a nut under here so that if I get to the point to where I'm starting to make contact here, I'll bring the nut up to that spot to kind of hold the weight of the pump, make sure I get my rod engaged, and then push it up and land it in with both screws and the nut, bring the nut up. Once I'm sure that what I'll do is I'll give the crank a couple turns from the front, make sure this is turning, because if you're not in the right spot, it's going to be pretty bad for you after doing all this work. Then I'll just take this bolt out and replace it with the one that's in there. So I'm going to get this set in the oil pan, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so here's a little bit of what I have to work with. The oil pan's just hanging down there from the transmission. I got about maybe 6-7 inches, enough to get my arm in there. But then the front is tipped up, and I've got the pump hanging from the one screw. So now I can kind of guide it up and try and get the rod to engage with the distributor. And once I do that, my easiest option is to push the or screw the nut up there to hold it in place, and then I can bring in the permanent bolt and go from there. So I'm going to give that a try. I can't really hold the camera at the same time, and I'll let you know how it goes. All right, so I was able to get the pump up. It took a little work, and you're going to need a couple special tools for it. I would say, that made it a lot easier for me. But as soon as I got the left bolt in, the forward bolt, it pulled the pump right up into the socket. Now, getting it into the distributor socket for the shaft, that's the trick. And what I found was I needed my handy dandy Milwaukee snake camera. Any snake camera, of course, will work, but I've had this one since they came out for my day job. But this thing here, I was able to get the long bolt started. So I got the long bolt started with the nut all the way down. And then I put the snake camera up there in position so I could see where it was going. And I just started bringing the pump up ever so slightly, and then bringing the nut up to hold it there. And then I would sit there and recheck the alignment and all that. And what I found was you had to tip the pump towards the passenger side. The bottom of the pump, you had to kind of push it. So I ended up with a ratchet extension that I just held on the pump and pushed as I brought it up a little bit, watching my camera and all that. It actually took me about 3 tries, to be honest, but you know, once you get the orientation of your camera and which way to push, you know, depending on how the camera is, then it's not a problem. The other thing for bringing up the left bolt or the forward bolt, you're going to need a power ratchet. I used a 1/4 inch extension. I got a 9/16 shallow socket, and that did the trick for driving it up there. Once I got the thread started, I pulled my plastic retainer that held the bolt in place out. Otherwise, if you pinch it down, you're going to lose a piece of it, and I don't think you really want that in there. But other than that, my pump is in, and now all I got to do is I got the forward bolt tight, so it should hold in place. I can just take out the other bolt, run it up, use my power driver to seat it in place, torque it, and on to hanging the pan. All right, hope that helps. It's a freaking pain in the ass, but God, who wants to pull an engine? All right, bye.